Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with a Rochester City Council update for March 14th, 2016. A few different items we're going to get to. Full day of meetings. We had both committee meeting, dinner meeting, and regular council meeting, and I snuck in to watch a little bit of the Police Oversight Committee meeting in between some of those. But some of the key topics that we discussed tonight that might be of interest to you. Big picture, I think you saw a very good reason tonight why elections matter. There are people, for the most insane reasons, that will just step on neighborhoods every chance that they can get. And there are some people who seek out fairness and justice for neighbors and try and look out for the public dollars. 4-3 votes are incredibly impactful. That's why elections matter. Based on the all of the facial expressions and the indignation shown by the lobbyists for the Rochester area builders as I made my points on not degrading the quality of a heavily subsidized project today indicates that, that I'm somebody they would really, really, really like to get rid of. I'm just not a very good puppet of the good old boys. And I'm sure I will be honored, as I always have been, by some challenge from a person who will be a good, loyal puppet to some of these special interests. But as long as I'm in this role, I'm going to continue standing up for the people of Rochester, and some of those special interests, they can continue to bear the brunt of the analysis that I'm bringing forward. It is really disappointing, some of the games, some of the cronyism that gets played time and time again in this city. I'm delighted to be back in Rochester. I've been doing some traveling. I've been sick for a little while. In particular, I learned a very important lesson. I missed my first city council meeting of any consequence in 8 years a couple weeks ago, and the lesson that I learned is I can never, ever miss another meeting for any reason. It just goes to hell really quickly. I was so very disappointed with the process, and I think there were some really outstanding people that showed some great leadership in Council Member Campion and Council Member Bilderback during that meeting, but I was so disappointed watching from afar on how that meeting was happening. And no matter how important some of these other objectives that I'm trying to achieve are, I've just got to figure out how to be here until we have more stability on the Rochester City Council. Items tonight, we had a person who was denied a massage ordinance for having committed 2 felonies in 6 years. Didn't look very good, but we got a very glowing letter of support from that person's probation agent. They're struggling with a lot, and I think that made the difference. We gave them a conditional permit to continue their practice, and we wish them continued healing. Interestingly, in the Committee of the Whole meeting, we had I don't know why leadership just didn't move this to a bigger room because we knew it was going to be packed, but we had an incredibly stuffy room because there were so many people packed in to hear the discussion about the library. And I've seen absolutely overwhelming support for the library, and I continue to support and advocate for the library. That was not a universal opinion on the City Council, but we did have enough support to move forward. And I got to tell you, I have received just an enormous stack of these postcards and emails and every other type of comment. I've read every single one. But here's a couple that I just want to share with you. This one is actually, I believe, from my next door neighbor, who's also a distinguished medical doctor, who says that the children's area of the library is an important part of our family time together. It is woefully small, and as our community grows, we need to invest in the growth of the children's section of our library. Sincerely, Jacob Strand. Very cool. I also got a note from Robbie, who says, Robbie says, I love the library. Please help it grow. And he corrected a couple of his own mistakes in there, and I appreciate every one of those comments. The community is overwhelmingly behind the library. I made the statement that libraries are defining what a community is, and ultimately it's a cost of doing business, and we've had 1,000% growth in programming at our current library in the last 20 years, and we just need more space. And $55 million is a lot of money, but they've also spent about 6 years coming up with these plans and working with the community. And how much second guessing do you need before you can actually make a decision? So what we did is we conditionally allowed them to go ahead and try and pursue the additional $20 million. The city would contribute $35 million, assuming that other partners, which would include the county and DMC, would come up with the remainder. Now, and also some private fundraising as well to come up with the $55 million. The county is simply being asked to pay for proportionately the amount of that the county would typically pay for library operations. So it's a much smaller number than the city, and it would be assessed against the non-city portion of their taxes. I'm hoping that the 5 people that represent the city of Rochester realize how important this is to the community and come through with their much smaller contribution to the project. Also, there'll be a request for between 10 and 11 million from DMC. Despite Senator Senjum's comments, it's important to realize that funding for the library has always been a part of the DMC. It was included in some of the financial data that I was privy to see at the time we were considering DMC. And Senator Senjum and all the legislatures, they also saw that. They had a line item for the library right in there. It's a critical part of the visitor experience in the city of Rochester. It's a critical part about the vitality of our downtown. So I really don't want to hear any comments that somehow library would just set the DMC people off. It was just completely inappropriate. It's not. The reality is we're looking for a contribution from DMC that's roughly proportional to what the inflation has been in construction dollars since the time the DMC was announced. It's a relatively small part, but I do expect them to come through with that contribution. Now, if it has to start once the state dollars start flowing, I completely get that. We can work with them on that, but I hope they step up and support our library. Bottom line is the city said we'll hold up our end of the bargain if you can get the others to hold up their ends of the bargain. In addition, there were some comments about the library location. I spent about 5 years trying to find a better location for the library, and I've convinced myself that there's just nothing that's superior to what there is right now. If there was a development project this could be part of, great, but there's not. It's vaporware. UMR, fantastic idea, but they're not hitting their marks, they're not hitting their deadlines, they're not hitting their student enrollment goals that they set out from the beginning, and we just can't sit around and speculate because there's not like a situation where we've got a lot of runway to figure out how to get enough library space. 1,000% increase in a library that was built too small to start out with is an issue that has to be addressed. And again, libraries are core to what the city of Rochester is. That's why we created a library board within our charter. So if you don't support libraries, that's fine. Rochester might not be the right location for you. I've articulated a way that potentially we could pay for our portion of the library expansion. If it was through bonding and property taxes, it would be a one-time 3% increase in property taxes levy across the city. There's a number of other ways that we could do it, like with food and beverage tax. Bottom line is it's a cost of doing business, and the annual cost to funding a world-class library is less than 1/10 of the amount that we put into subsidizing sprawl every single year. So if you tell me there's not enough money to it, I'm going to tell you you just don't have your priorities right. Start cutting the things that ought to be cut and start focusing on the things that make us a great city. Additionally, Pilates. We had our city dinner at Pilates tonight, which was really ironic because they actually couldn't serve beer, and we don't drink before the meetings, or at least the public thinks we don't. But they haven't been able to sell beer for some time because of some issues that happened with the previous owner, and they were actually on the agenda tonight to get the transfer approved. So I kind of jokingly, after we had it approved, brought them up a little note that's saying it's okay to start selling beer now. We approved the transfer, and we'll be getting all the official stuff tomorrow. But in the meantime, they have my cute little note telling them it's okay that they can start selling beer, and they were just ecstatic. And I stopped out and saw them again after the meeting, and they were so happy. I even got hugs up there, so that was pretty cool. Every now and then, being in local government, you can do some really cool stuff to support local businesses, and that was a really cool personal touch that I was able to bring the folks up at Pilates, which is a business that I've been patronizing for 16 years now. So really, really cool to do that. Last thing, and really the bane of my frustration, what made me so angry tonight, was talking about the 501 project yet again. There are so many things that were wrong with the proposal that came in front of us. I think a city council full of visionary leaders would have taken one look at the proposal and laughed at it and just thrown it out. Here's the issue, is this is a project that we put $10 million of public support into. We did that through $1.7 million in TIF. We did that through alley development rights. We did that through a massive incentive development program for that. And in return, we got a building that didn't even live up to the standards of our urban village guidelines. Now, turn the page a few months later, and we put in what we call the Mac Hamilton clause, which basically is you have to build what you say you're going to build. And surprise, surprise, they didn't want to build what they said they were going to build. My take is it was just too expensive. They said it was too hard to maintain, but I'm just not buying that for 1 second. Well, the kicker was, after all of this back and forth, they came back and the council asked them to meet with the neighborhood. So they met with the neighborhoods, both the Southwest and the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and basically told them, here's exactly what we're going to do. Nothing's up for negotiation. They told us we had to meet with you, so we did. And obviously that didn't please the neighbors very well. And then in addition to that, there was a question I asked them. Okay, you're saying this is not about the cost of materials, because they went from some very nice materials to some substantially cheaper materials, some really vastly inferior materials. And I said, okay, show me some cost estimates or invoices, and prove to me that it's not about the money, because we're giving you 1.7 million, and if you're cutting out a bunch of money, we can cut out the amount of subsidy that we're giving you. They were not willing to share that information either. So President Staver and I went back and forth a few times that he made the line that, well, is cheaper necessarily not as high quality? That's not always the case. However, in this particular case, you're going from a natural limestone siding in the areas that are directly visible and accessible to pedestrians to basically masonry block. You go from one of the nicest materials you could have to one of the dirt cheapest materials you could possibly have. And I'm not stupid. The public's not stupid. The neighborhoods aren't stupid. Everyone knows that's a huge degradation in quality. They also took a pretty high-end finish for the balconies, which was a plate glass finish, and they replaced it with aluminum. Now, aluminum's not a terrible finish for balconies, but again, you're cutting a huge amount of cost out of the project. I know plate glass balconies are expensive because I have one in my house. And, you have to clean it every now and then. So if this was really about the maintenance, I suggested, why don't you go talk with the neighborhood about some good materials that can be easily maintained and come back with something that's acceptable to both parties. But they didn't do that. They brought the cheapest materials that they could possibly come up with, and they wanted to shove them down the throat of the neighborhoods. And the issue was that they were gambling, and this has been done so many times successfully in Rochester, why wouldn't they, that there would be 4 votes at the city council that would just stab the neighborhoods in the back yet again. And you know what the beautiful thing was? Thanks to elections, there were only 3 votes to stab the neighborhoods in the back. Even though we had agreed on the quality and provided massive, massive subsidies to this project, while still accepting a project that didn't live up to our own ideals, they wanted to come back and cheapen it up, and they thought they could get away with it without talking to neighborhoods by just getting 4 city council members to just ignore common sense, ignore decency, ignore return on investment for the public dollar, ignore the respect for those people in the neighborhood that stuck out their necks and worked on this for years. And it didn't happen. Council President Staver, council members Ruska and Hickey, as expected, voted against the neighborhood and voted to just blindly go with the cheaper materials. The fascinating part is I had asked staff to review these materials and see what the difference in the costs were something like a month ago, but staff was unwilling to do it because the majority of the council, including those folks mentioned, didn't support staff taking the time to investigate whether or not these were really cheaper materials. So I was criticized for not having data that those are cheaper materials. I would encourage you to look at the facades of 2 businesses that I love but not great buildings, Toys R Us and Tyrell Sports. Take a look at the building facades of those buildings, and that's what they're trying to do here. And they're doing it with $10 million in public subsidies. This kind of madness has to stop. When we get a proposal like this to the city, it should have come to the city council, and the public discussion should have consisted of, are you stupid? Are you serious? Do you think we're actually going to let you get away with this? And let them come back with something that works better. That didn't happen. These games continue, and they will continue as long as we have people that are unwilling to uphold high standards for the community. Now, what was really fantastic is the neighborhoods won one, and every now and then we actually win some because we have people on the city council now who actually care about neighborhoods and who actually care about getting return on investment on the public dollars. That is fantastic, and I'm really heartened to see that. And I hope that people remember that in election season this year, that who you vote for really matters when there's something coming into your neighborhood. Because just as we were very willing to lower the quality on this project, we're going to do the same thing to your neighborhood when time comes. And ultimately, I believe in doing quality development. I have supported the overwhelming majority of development that's come on in Rochester, but this persistent lowering of standards is something that I cannot and will not support. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your support. I'm already out there knocking on doors, looking forward to campaigning for re-election in 2016. And just remember, there will be somebody out there who will be a loyal go-to vote for some of the good old boys who try and pull this crap time and time again. And who you vote for does matter. Thank you so much for your support, and I will continue working hard for the people of Rochester and not the special interests of Rochester.